Welcome. I'm Kevin Miller. I have conversations with people that help us make better meaning of our lives. In this episode, in a world bent on achieving destinations, we look at the empowerment of leaving things behind. I really appreciate people who help us with paradigm shifts. I have viewed life for most of my life as progressing to the next goal, the next destination, focused on what I can add to my achievements, to my life. And yet, as I've gotten older and dealt with more things that have really humbled and tempered me, I started wondering if there's as much or more growth, not from adding, but subtracting, not from learning new things, but unlearning old things. So in a similar concept, my guest today says transformation is the power of departure. So Dr. Rosenna Bakari, she's a psychologist, empowerment expert, and educator who has just published a book titled 7 Exits, Leave Behind What No Longer Serves You. Rosenna had a childhood seizure at the age of 7 and was misdiagnosed as mildly retarded. So she went from that aspect and empowered herself. She went on to be identified as mentally gifted. At the age of 17, she entered Cornell University and by age 22 had earned her Ph.D. in educational psychology. For more than 25 years, Dr. Bakari taught psychology to graduate and undergraduate students, published peer-reviewed articles, and delivered presentations across the country with a focus on empowerment, healing, and transformation. Here's a quote that I really tuned into from Rosenna. High quality mental well-being displays positive characteristics such as managing stress and recovering from adversity. It also includes emotional regulation, self-awareness, and cognitive flexibility. However, individuals with high mental functioning can still be disempowered. That's where I really keyed in. I feel that we have a culture that feels tremendously disempowered more and more, even amongst the so-called successful. And I resonate because I include myself in this category as well. So coming up next, my conversation with Dr. Rosenna Bakari on what empowerment really looks and feels like, how we're missing it, and how we can better engage with it. Rosenna, when your book came across my desk, this concept used the word exits. And I really like kind of using different terminologies than the norm. I think we need to, because we have so much baggage and perception around the common words. Because as I looked at this, the concept that first got my attention is around letting go. And I have had my own sporadic journey, I feel like, with some of the concepts of letting go. And I really like the perspectives that you come at and am eager to talk more. So thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure, Kevin. I'm excited. I look forward to this conversation.
As I finished your book, the term that came to mind is you not only giving us some different ways of looking at how we can exit things, how we can let go, how we can detach so many of these words you used in there, but that you, in a lot of ways, I felt like you helped us give ourselves permission. Is that fair?
Absolutely. And I'm excited that you picked up on that. Absolutely. Deserving to have permission, because I really wrote the book with successful people in mind, high functioning people in mind, who continue to push, even though sometimes we don't know what we're pushing for. We just get comfortable pushing, pushing, pushing. And there are times in my life I can think where someone has inadvertently given me permission and it just opened something up. And so that is absolutely the invitation that I wanted 7Xs to have.
You actually have a line in there, I think somewhere in the beginning, that transformation is the power of departure. I mean, in some ways it's self-explanatory, but I'm going to ask you unpack that in the way that you see it. Transformation is the power of departure.
Right. It's so oftentimes when we think about the word transformation, at least what I have in the past, when I read these things and I practice, it's always a do this, gather this, get more, what you're lacking. And so and I did all of those things. I mean, I thought I had it all together. And it occurred to me when I really started looking at why am I still, what's this nudge that's still unfulfilled in me? This potential that's unfulfilled, the way that I see myself showing up in the world, all these things. I have a PhD, I have a lovely husband, I have children, I've accumulated. And so then what was left after my experience in the supporting people, teaching in a classroom, I started seeing the world differently. It was like, oh, it's really time for me to start thinking about how am I getting in my own way, meaning what do I need to give up? Not what do I need to get, but what do I need to leave? Like just leave. What am I holding on to? And I had asked my clients that question so many times, like, what are you holding on to that you know is keeping you where you are? And so when I started looking at that and thinking differently about transformation, oh yeah, transformation is about departing ways with all these things that we thought were going to anchor us down, and they did anchor us. Not in a way
Yeah.
that we wanted to be.
Okay, that concept. Let me think. There was a point in time where, I mean, I'm in this industry of, self-help information, and we're putting out information. We're putting out podcasts and blogs and books, and I'm a chief purveyor of that. And I felt like we keep adding stuff on. Like you said, we just keep adding. We keep adding it and putting more and more on. And then as I went finally through my greatest transformation, I realized I feel like I'm doing a lot more taking away than I am adding. Is that another way of looking at it?
Yes. Yeah. When I got serious about it, right? Yes. It was like, oh, and those are the X's, right? Like, oh, you're getting in your way because like your ego is still a little bit too big. You're getting in your way because you're just complacent. Like you've come to this point where you feel like you should have something that you're not even entitled to. You just feel like you should have it because you've been doing. And I find that sometimes that was what the problem was. I was so busy doing that the more I see that I'm doing, then you start having these expectations of the world, right? Well, I'm doing, and there has to be a payoff. I'm doing. It feels very different when I start letting go.
Okay, well, that again, that's, as we talked about before this, Rosenna, that I felt so much resonance. Like you are speaking to things that even as I feel like I've been in this industry forever, going through my own dark night of the soul, in essence, I experienced a lot of things that I had missed. And yeah, you talking about the doing, I consider myself, I had been a professional doer, a guru of doing. And even from a personal life, it's big family and the big house and the businesses and the extracurricular endeavors like the running, and for me, running, writing, and all these things. And people constantly saying, gosh, I don't know. How do you do it all? And now I look at it and go, well, it was costly. It was costly. Mm-hmm. And now my reorienting, and I would say re-identifying outside of that. I'll say this, Rosenna, for right here, right now, as we're talking, I have more peace than ever. Yes. I mean, I can't deny more peace. And I also still sort of disorient myself. I still identify with the doer, and I have to be conscious and aware to not be that person, which is, there's a lot of accolades for that. The world applauds that. Yep. It comes across as impressive, but I feel again that you helped me. It was, I confirmed myself a lot reading your stuff as far as affirming some of those actions that, again, the world doesn't applaud so much, the being as opposed to the doing. Yeah.
Yep. Yes. No one sees it. No one sees when you put your ego away. Right? No one sees it, but you feel lighter when you know that this is the kind of work that you're doing. Like, oh, I'm not gonna engage in that. For me, it's even as simple as sometimes when you're scrolling online and you're like, oh man, why did they say that? And then you're like, oh, that's right. That has nothing to do with me, right? Like no one sees you doing that. No one sees you when you're questioning yourself and your complacency and your indoctrination and you're trying to figure out a way to release these secrets, right? Like no one sees you doing all that. You don't get any accolades, which also means that sometimes we're like, are we doing it fast enough? Are we doing it right? Because no one sees it. And this is the kind of work that we start engaging in for transformation. These types of departures, they are gratifying once you accept doing them in isolation, but that takes practice.
What else does it take? My first thought was I've felt myself have to mature. One,
Right.
I would say humility is pretty much required, but you said something there that I thought of, the isolation, I think, but the connection to myself, the
Right.
connection to the present moment, and ultimately the connection to the people I'm closest with has been worth its weight in gold. That's what, for me, not that I have to offset it, but I would say, man, you want a payoff for maybe the world's not applauding? There's some good payoff
Right.
at home. Fair?
Right. Right. I think for me, the isolation that I have to accept is the isolation of the work. So, for
Mm.
example, is my relationship with my spouse better? Absolutely. Is my relationship with my adult children better? Absolutely. But it's only better because I recognize fully that this work is mine. And if they never do any work, that's okay. Like this work is mine. So that's what I mean when I say the
Okay.
isolation in the work. Like it's the work itself that's isolating. Because I know, and I get this a lot with my clients. They're like, "But I'm trying so hard, and they're not doing anything." Like it's not their journey. Not yet. It's not. Like it's your journey, and you have to be willing to do what's required of you on your journey, not expect somehow this even payoff somewhere. That's the accumulation stuff that we're just talking about.
Yeah. You, again, I'm going to highlight with some things that jumped out at me that I felt like you said, and I feel like I've been kind of realizing this, but I haven't heard anybody say it like that. And this is right out of your book. You can be, and I want to hit on this, you can be high functioning and still disempowered. Well, let me first say that aspect of empowered and disempowered has come to the forefront of my own work, which is goofy to say because I don't feel like my work and my personal journey there's no separation, but it is my devotion is that aspect of realizing that, oh my goodness, I've spent so much time, quote, high functioning, high producing, doing the high achieving thing. And yet I did it. What I found out is in a lot of disempowerment,
Hmm.
confined by the expectations of other people or even just myself and all these confines that I am now exiting or I'm trying or still in the process of, I'd say a lot of them still in the process of exiting and empowering myself. And I just was blind to being disempowered. So you putting those together, I love that. Yeah, you can be high functioning and quote successful, as you say in the book, and yet your would you say it's an issue of motive? Your motive can be healthy or not healthy. You can do the same thing, but your
Right.
motive and spirit behind it. Is that track?
It's your motive and your spirit. And oftentimes, high functioning people who are disempowered, you'll see the imbalance in their lives. So they may be high functioning, they may be great parents, right? But they may be not living up to their internal potential, right? Maybe they're hiding behind, and I've seen a lot of women do this, right? Hide behind their successful spouses and become mothers.
Mm.
Not because, and if you do that because you enjoy it, that's fantastic. But what I see oftentimes is that women burn themselves out doing doing their work in home In the same way that women burn themselves out at work, outside of the home, right? It's still burnout. And it still comes from you being disempowered in how you are showing up.
Yeah.
Being a great parent does not require you to be disempowered. Being a great employee does not require you to be disempowered. And so, part of what my aim is in 7X's is to bring back the combination of success and ease. Somehow we've come to accept that the more successful we are, the harder it's supposed to be for us. And I firmly believe that there is success and ease. And how do we bring that together in our lives so that we're not victims of success?
Okay. The victims of success. Yeah. Tell me, you have empowerment. You say this is somewhere at the beginning of the book. Empowerment starts with self-centeredness, and you come to this again. In one of the exits, you come to this. So I'm not going to go completely sequentially here, but you said empowerment starts with self-centeredness. So I have had and have been speaking to a lot of focus on self-awareness and on, self. Some people discomfort themselves a bit with when you start talking about the focus on self, and you say starts with self-centeredness, but can I separate that and let you speak to it, that you're not talking about the word that I found myself coming to try to help balance that is not self-absorption, but self-centered. So tell me.
Yes, quite the contrary. It's not self-absorption and it's certainly not selfish. And so when we are self-centered, it means that we center ourselves in all of our experiences. When we do that, we never fall to victimhood, not victimhood of as an employee, as a gender, as a race, anything that we are. We show up empowered. And so when I'm other centered, so it's self centered versus other centered. So when I'm other centered, all of my explanations for what I get or what I do in the world go toward others. So I can't have this because I have to do this for my children, my spouse, my boss. So I'm trying to serve others. And to the degree that I put all my energy into serving others, I also have a tendency to blame others. So that's what happens there. So I'm serving you. Therefore, if I don't get something back from that, then that must be your fault. That's the
Oh.
beginning of all breakups, right? And it must be your fault. When I am self centered, I make sure that my cup is full. And when I serve you from the overflow, and this is the tricky part that comes from a trust in a process, that there is no way possible for my cup to overflow and you not be happy with the overflow. Because there is joy and magic in the overflow. If it's running over, then there's joy and magic for everybody. What happens is when I'm serving you from an empty cup, it comes with bitterness. It comes sometimes with shame or guilt or or victimization. This is what I have to do. This is what I'm told to do. And don't you get it? And what's the return? Right. And so that's when you're serving from a half cup or empty cup. But when my cup is full, it's full of joy. It's There's no bitterness in serving you. I can serve you freely. Whatever sacrifices that I make for you are gifted to you. You're not burdened by the sacrifices that I make. And so learning to do that, that means we have to learn the self-awareness, what really joy means for us, and searching inside for that joy instead of trying to outsource it. It's very different.
Okay. I don't want to leave this topic because we speak to it so often. I'm sure everybody listening to this has heard that. You need to have a full cup, in the airplane, put the mask on first, yourself first. They've heard that, but we're not doing it. It's not happening. And I didn't either. And I grew up primarily in a religious construct. And the whole point is be selfless, die to self,
Yeah.
be selfless, go out there. and I saw everybody doing themselves into the ground. And I saw no joy from it that I wanted to. It was incredibly not inspiring at
Yeah.
all. But I'll but it then. But then we all know, and everybody seems to want to go here, the person who does nothing but fill themselves up and they're not pouring out anywhere. I don't think we see it a lot. I think we over dramatize it somewhat, but sure, we've seen that. And you can do that. And I've seen that in self-help and therapy, and to where people, oh my gosh, they do get so absorbed with self that they're not doing anybody any good. But what, a balance here. And let me think, if I tread on whether I'm being politically correct or not here, I'm going to tend to say my experience is women by far and large are more prone to just do the pour out thing, to where there is just nothing left. And they're dear to everybody, but they're so uninspired. And tell me, because you can relate more than I can.
I think it's part of the indoctrination, right? We drank the Kool-Aid. Someone said this is what it's gonna look like, but no one told us this is what it's gonna feel like. And so we often don't give ourselves permission to do that. And then regarding your comment about the person who's overly self-absorbed, there's a difference between being where we get self-absorbed or selfish. That's a defense. That's very different than joy. So they may be doing things for themselves, but not necessarily bringing themselves joy. There's a difference. I'm talking about filling your cup with joy that, I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get that first hour to myself, whether it's running, coffee, news, whatever, that I make choices about how I spend my time, whether I work that extra 10 hours a week, or then I take ownership for that. I'm not afraid to tell my kids, mommy needs another 10 minutes. Or, like I used to put myself on timeout with my kids. But, like mommy needs a timeout. I don't know what yours was. Mommy needs a timeout. Mommy can't talk to anybody for 10 minutes, right?
I like that, because as we look at, if you want to call it spirit or energy or whatnot, to know that precedes me. I mean, when I'm looking at you right now, we're live together, and I perceive joy. And
Thank you.
I'll say that, we're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but we do. And I do. And I got your information and a picture of you, and I just kind of sensed joy. I mean, you can see it. I feel like we precede everything. And to know that for my family, if they're being, I'm going to say infected, which sounds like a bad word, but infected with the inner me, then is there anything more important than me checking my joy meter? You even asked this. It's in your, the emotion. I've got it written down here on my notes here, but the it's a test that or quiz you had us go through.
What do you wake up with?
Yeah. I'll go through it though. But you said one of your questions was, how often do you look in the mirror for more than aesthetics or hygiene or something like that?
Yep.
That one, I didn't, Rosenna. I mean, for most of my life, I did not. If I had to check, if my hair's okay, that was about it. Otherwise, I didn't. And there's a telltale sign there. I was not checking in with me. And I see you, what I perceive of you is you're looking in there. And I love that you related it to your kids. And if your joy meter, I'm going to say that your joy level is not where you are. You're saying, hey, let's take a second so I can be there for you in the best way possible. Yeah.
Right. It's not, I don't put it on them or being a mom or, it's like, oh no, I need to go fill up. So, and I don't let it go empty. Like maybe today it'll get half down, half full because but I know I got that meter, and where is it? And not checking in with that every day or every couple of days, but not just to do, where you're not checking in with yourself because you're so busy doing.
I want to get into the specific exits. I don't know that we'll get through them all in our talk here, but one more just kind of big statement that I didn't want to miss sharing here. And you say the problem isn't that you don't know how to get where you want to go. It's that you don't know how to leave where you are. And that again feels like something that in different facets, we as a culture, as a self-help, industry, we address, but again, I'd say we're not doing it well. And I'm including me, that I've been talking about this stuff with the best of the best, and we're not doing it. We still don't perceive the risk of staying where we are to the same level of the risk or the opportunity of getting where we are. But that statement, we don't know how to leave where we are. I feel like you gave great contrast so often in your statements. I actually want to read again. The problem isn't that we don't know how to get where we want to go. We do. And we listen to podcasts and we read the books and we read the blogs. We know what to do. What's the problem? And we look at this, but I'm in agreement with you that I feel like you kind of nailed it. We don't know how to leave where we are. Kind of I thought back to I know it's pithy, but the devil we know is just easier than the devil we don't. And I feel like here you are saying, come on, I'll help you. I'll guide you. Yeah.
Right. And the truth is there's so much more vulnerability in a discussion about leaving where I am. That's where all the vulnerability is.
Yeah.
Like, I gotta face these. I mean, when you look at the 7X's, they're all about the vulnerability, right? When we're trying to talk about ego, like this, like you want me to identify my own ego defenses and to watch that, right? Like there's so much vulnerability in that. There's no vulnerability in saying, oh, well, of course I want more education. Of course I want more money. Of course I want my children. Of course I want. There's no vulnerability in that. What am I going to do to grow my business? Like those are dream conversations. They don't require anything of us. Departure does.
Okay. So that is your first exit, hyper ego. And when we look at how you define empowerment and we look at the ego, I helped myself again reading through how you defined it, but so much of that was around the ego is there and it defends for us. It, protects. We've got Eckhart Tolle who talks so much about ego and how we're dealing with that. But at the end, not at the end, I tend to come down to a root though, that the ego is there generally in relation to my level of insecurity. How's that set?
Yeah? Yes, absolutely.
So go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, so in that, so we're dealing with, like you just said, it's so vulnerable to deal with my ego. And I'm questioning how we've gotten to this. I feel like culturally I feel like we're at all time highs or lows, however you want to say it, of insecurity. We've gotten so fragile. And that's where I see my ego's been around. It's been around protecting Kevin and Kevin's image, primarily Kevin's identity. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's been happening for a long time. That's not new. We just have new ways of showing it and new ways of seeing, because now in some ways we're all sort of living under this microscope. And so everybody now has to be in more protection mode. And so, of course, if we're willing to depart, then that's a really vulnerable state to be in, to take that step and go, whoa, what will it look like if I don't protect that? One of my favorite lines from Eckhart Tolle is nothing real is actually from the Course in Miracles, but he states it a lot. Nothing real needs to be protected. Nothing unreal exists. Therein lies the peace of God. Right. I held on to that for so long, right? And so it's one of the questions that I have always spun in my head about, well, what happens if I don't need to protect this? What happens if I don't protect it? How real is it? If I'm married and I'm so insecure about what happens if I just let him do what he wants to do, because that's what he's going to do. And I don't spend my energy looking through wallies and and trust that whatever is real is going to be there, and whatever isn't real, why would I want to protect it? If the love isn't real, the security isn't real, what am I really protecting? Right? The same thing with the brand. I used to say this to a lot of people. And surely we do have to protect our brand and stuff in some ways. But in a lot of ways, I see people miss out on opportunities because they're so busy. Somebody's going to steal their work and da da da. I'm like, well, then create more work. I mean, and like the amount of energy that you may spend protecting something is actually you're gonna miss out on other opportunities protecting. So to the degree that you can build something more robust, that if someone even steals this part, like you wouldn't be the first person somebody was at their work stolen, right? And that's not to say we want to open ourselves up to added vulnerability, but it's saying that we want to open ourselves up so that we're not so restricted in defense mode and whatever it is, relationships, work, children, whatever it is, just what if we get out of protection mode and into love mode? What if we just shower with love instead of protection? Whoo, that's scary. That takes the practice
Well,
and trusting.
one of the things that you pull out in that section, Rosenna, is emotional intelligence. And that was, is, it was paramount for me. It was realizing how emotionally unintelligent that I was. As far as me, and I missed it. I thought because I can tune into you and be aware of you and read you and read the situation. I literally thought that was emotional intelligence to me. And I completely missed the mirror again, looking at me and understanding me. Thus, I didn't know it. I was living so much out of this ego that's protecting.
Yeah.
And it wasn't protecting even from, I mean, I don't think anybody witnessed me as Mr. Insecurity, but it was the level of work. It was back to the doing that you talk about that I burn out in multiple ways. And there's collateral damage from that. And it was just being blind to these aspects. So when you talk about love, I feel like that's the first thing I thought of was a section in your book then on emotional intelligence, the need for emotional, which takes us back then to, we got to focus on self and no self. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And centering ourselves in ours, being at the center. When we're at the center, we can reach everything. That's counterintuitive. So most of us, we're way over here where the money is, and then we can't reach anything else. Right.
Yeah.
Like if we're centered in ourselves, then we can reach everything else with much more ease. We're not off kilter.
Well, again, I'll keep saying it because it's just true. I resonated so much. Your exit to silence and secrecy. And you said, and I appreciate your personal stories and your own vulnerability in the book, that you used your silence as a shield. Would it be correct to say that in some ways you even felt like you were serving other people well with your silence?
Oh, 1,000%. 1,000% serving other people well, serving my family well. And because that's what good sisters did, that's what good daughters did, that's what good wives did. I mean, so it was like I knew my charge was to represent the family and be this person who, the first one to go off to college and do these things. And you can't be here and then holding on to secret, letting out secrets at the same time. Like, you can't do all that. And so I chose secrecy for a long, long time. So until I couldn't hold it anymore. And that was the beginning of my journey. I was in my mid 40s.
Yeah.
And when you start releasing these secrets, it takes you back to childhood. It's a long journey back up back up to the top.
That, Rosenna, so the silence on you came to it earlier than I did. It was later even for me of realizing the silence. And for me, it was in the close relationships and not being honest, not having boundaries, and thinking I was the valiant Christian man by keeping my mouth shut. I'm not going to say anything upsetting. I was conflict cowardly also, so add that in there. but then thought that I'm not going to say anything averse. I'm just going to withstand it. I am Mount
Yeah.
Rushmore or whatever. And the silence, it was just, it didn't add up. And there was
Yeah.
collateral damage by not being honest.
Right. And I don't think people realize it. Even if it's not trauma, sometimes, like, I know people who are, for example, having affairs. That's the silence that you carry.
Oh,
Anytime you carry, something that doesn't allow you to be fully present with yourself, there's a piece of you that you must withhold, because privacy is not the same thing as silence. Like, there are things I'm private about, and then there are things that I'm secret about. They're not the same thing. We know the difference. And anything that carries a share of, if this is known, it will bring me shame, that's silence. That's not
okay.
privacy.
I want to go right there. You said, if this, I'm writing it down, if this is known, it will bring me shame. So you speak to specifically, and obviously part of your, well, not obviously, obvious to me because I've read the book, but a lot of your work is with victims of sexual abuse.
Mm-hmm.
So, I am not, but knowing people in there, what I realized as I have my such a focus on how we interpret the world, how we experience the world, how we make meaning, and have someone close to me, victim of sexual abuse, and realize through her testimony that the most damaging thing, not to minimize the literal abuse, but long term, far decades, after that had happened, it was the meaning she made about it and then was secret about it. And of course, as often as I've heard testimony, and again, this is your arena, the meanings that people who are the victims make about themselves in regard to it, and realizing from her story, oh my gosh, what did it mean about her? No, I mean, I don't, you could say she's unlucky. I don't know, but there was nothing intrinsically that it meant about her. What it meant was there was a damaged person that did harm. But by far and large, I'm not trying to make a point on sexual abuse so much, but just the point of the meaning we make and then we are silent about. Is that one of the biggest?
Right. Well, the biggest challenge when there's the secrecy, particularly from victimization, where there's secrecy, there is no growth. Like, that's the biggest problem. You can't grow in secrecy. There's no acknowledgement of the shame. There's no acknowledgement of the harm. Then all you have, like you said, is the meaning that you've made of it. There's no one to challenge that. Who's going to challenge it? You never talk about it. You never state it. You you put it under a rug. And so that's the hard part. It's almost impossible, if not completely impossible, to heal in silence. If you won't acknowledge it, then it can't be acknowledged. And so as long as we're living, and I don't mean telling the world, but I mean having enough processing of it that you get to acknowledge it and create a new narrative. But you cannot create a new narrative if you're living with the secrecy and shame of it. Then you can't create a new narrative.
Okay, well, in the same section, you use the word acknowledge a couple times. You have a segment on the art of unforgiveness. And you start off with acknowledging your pain first, forgiving yourself first. I continue to grapple with how we conceive of forgiveness or unforgiveness. And again, I see you laugh there. Yeah. Okay. I want your take on it, because I'm going to, my religious construct was such a formative part, and you forgive. Anything other than forgiveness is wrong and hurtful and whatnot. And yet, and this isn't a point, it's a question for you. This friend of mine, again, back to her own journey that she shared with me of her sexual abuse, she said it was one of the most helpful things was when she realized she did not have to forgive the guy in this situation. And that, I mean, I was with her. I could see and feel it, and it felt great, from her standpoint. But I'm trying to reconcile my perspective. Yeah. Okay. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me.
Yeah. Well, let me say this. I'll give this away. That's one of the reasons why that whole statement about forgiveness, or that chapter on unforgiveness, is one of the reasons why that indoctrination exit is so vital and so important because it is so connected. Some of the things I'm asking people to depart from, I know is directly connected to indoctrination. And that's one of those pieces, right? And so uh, leaving behind what no longer serves you, like that's it. Like, is this belief serving you? Is like, because if when I at least speak to most of my clients or people who are struggling with this, and they give me the indoctrination of it, and is this the only thing that you've gone against, right? Like, is there never it? So, along with forgiveness, you follow every other single thing in this indoctrination. Well, of course, people have it.
Pull that out real quick, because the
Right.
indoctrination, which is one of your, I can't remember, it's the sixth or seventh or fifth exit, but you just said the word beliefs. Is it fair to say I took that as it's the beliefs that I have probably unconsciously agreed to, I've just adopted, or I have agreed to them, even if I don't fully understand it, or as you said, it's not serving me any longer. And
Right.
so I go back to these, like that Christian belief, you forgive. Well, what do we mean by that? What does that look like?
Right.
I think we just say it and we don't really understand. Okay. Yeah. So that's what you're saying. These indoctrinations, these beliefs, these prefaces that we have.
Anything that's never been questioned. This set of rules that we never were given permission or thought we needed to question.
Okay.
And so they're big buckets. And so it's interesting because they don't serve us. And so, but we're not consistent in them at all. So it's only when we hear these big things that someone else does that we pull them out. And so I'm like, okay, well, what about all the other things that you already are doing that do not align with the indoctrination that goes with that piece? So at some point, we have to recognize again that if we become self-centered, then we get to ask ourselves, how is this belief serving us? And we can, and most people do choose what they're going to believe in, even within their religious indoctrination. I don't know anyone who lives fully according to in terms of what you don't eat and when the sun rises and what. I don't know anyone who lives fully in that. And so even though we call it religious, or some people call it a spiritual belief or whatever, we are constantly negotiating those beliefs. So what they've really become are cultural beliefs or community beliefs or family beliefs, right? And so, but the challenge is they come not just with the belief in our mind, they come with a set of people attached to them.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it difficult for us to challenge them. They come with a set of people that we think, no one told us this most of the time or made us do this, but we think that holding on to these beliefs is a way to earn or hold on to the love that's delivered to us from those people. And so it makes it difficult.
Yeah, Rosanna, I started my own journey on questioning beliefs probably. Well, I shouldn't say I started, but it was significant. Years ago, we had a guy on the show, Andy Norman. He's an author, maybe a psychologist. I can't remember. He wrote a book called Mental Immunity, but he talked, and what I had him on the show about was beliefs and the danger of beliefs when we attach them to our identity.
Right.
And I felt that vibe coming from you when we attach it. You just talked about to our social identity, to our whatever, when the belief is there and it can't, well, what you just said, when it can't be questioned. And again, I'm not here to pick on religion. I just keep coming up because it's so relevant. Right. It was questioning religion. That was blasphemy in and of itself. You don't question it. That was the point.
Right.
Well, that worked till it didn't for me, I guess.
Right. Yeah. And let it work until it doesn't. I'm glad I'm not anti-religion. I mean, let it work until it doesn't, like everything else. And then when it doesn't, be willing to free yourself.
Well, which takes the essence of your book, knowing yourself. So exit 3, emotional dependency. I am going down through these. I don't know that we'll go through them all, but they lead into it. And you just talked again about the aspect of being self-centered. And I want to read a line that you wrote out of the book on emotional dependency. You said, emotional dependency can be deeply limited because it keeps us looking outward for reassurance instead of building a life grounded in our power. I want to ask you to speak, Rosenna, on the aspect of our power, because I'm with you. I'm in agreement. I resonate in the way that I interpret that line. Back to religion, there's a lot of people who struggle, and I've struggled in talking with me on this concept of on me being all powerful, like I'm God. And I feel like as I read the Bible, even if we look at that, there's a lot of call out, it seems like to me, to what I'm going to say, our personal agency, that God didn't just take us up and make us do anything. He invited and entreated us. And so just for those who may struggle in that arena, but for you to say, again, looking for reassurance outside instead of being okay right here. And emotional dependency. I don't see, it's hard not to feel like we are maybe at a place of less of more emotional dependency than ever. Is that fair?
It seems that way to me. And again, I think it has to do with being under the microscope. Everything people do is just right in front of your face. And so we haven't figured, we're a long way from figuring that out, because we're still right now diving deep into it with more and more stimuli by the second. We're either listening to something or seeing something or phone in your hand. And so it's really difficult to detach emotionally when you are physically tied to it now. And so it's harder to get the emotional dependency, independence, which is why to me it's even more important, these 7 exits and making a departure and being conscious. Because I always say, if you don't know who you are, then someone will tell you, and someone's constantly telling you who you are. And so we just cannot afford to be absent in our own lives right now. You run the risk of being swallowed up.
You have in this section of the book, and I was trying to come up with the term earlier when I talked about, it was emotional balance activity. You have that little quiz in essence that we can go through. And I went through it, by the way. Thank you. I did go through it. I did pretty well. I was pleased with my my result. I had a 3-point difference in those.
Oh, great.
But you said the word a minute ago, Rosenna, and it may be commonplace to you, but it wasn't to me. Emotional independence. And I have been grappling with that concept a lot. And I put a lot of focus on words and how we perceive, words. So emotional independence. And I look at that and feel like that's paramount, to be emotionally independent of you used the word a second ago, the stimulus, because we are going to wake up and with our senses all day long, we're going to encounter stimuli. And is it going to control us, or are we going to control us? Yeah. But I want you to speak to the but that I know folks often grapple with. Is you're also not saying that the goal is just to be over here and to be completely unmoved and untouched by anything. But reconcile that, because you can ease emotionally independence. Oh, so nothing touches you. It's not that. Help reconcile that.
Yeah. So again, there's a difference, I always say, between fear and love. So any act it could be the exact same act externally, but internally it does not feel the same at all. How it feels internally is going to depend on if that action is coming from fear or from love. And only you may know that. Right. And so if I'm numb, if I just cut myself off, I'm numb from fear. That's going to feel very different than if I am detached from a perspective of love, because it's okay if Kevin thinks differently than I do. it's okay if I release the expectation that I had for my husband to bring me flowers on Valentine's Day. That didn't happen, and it's okay to let the expectation go in the name of love versus in the name of fear that I'm not worthy, or fear that he doesn't love me anymore. And maybe I need to do something else. So you have to be the self, it comes back to the self-awareness.
Does it track then to say, as you measure it somewhat by fear or love, or balance, or kind of audit it, that it's the motive behind it? Am I responding out of, back to the things we talked about, self-protection, insecurity,
Right.
I'm quote, triggered or whatnot? Or am I, man, I'm feeling it, but I'm to use that word, centered. I'm grounded
Right.
inside. Okay.
Right.
So the
Right.
motive. Okay.
Right. And I can feel it. And here's the thing. If I'm releasing it, I feel it and I release it. It's catch and release, right? Versus I don't even allow myself to feel it. That goes back to the defenses, like
Okay.
denial and that sort of stuff. So it's okay to feel it, but when we get lost in our feelings, that's when the problems arise. And when we talk about feelings, I always like to bring up the fact that feelings are feelings, good or bad. Like, we label them as good or bad, but any intense feeling can lead you down a path that you don't want to be on. So it's interesting that we question the feelings that we don't want as bad feelings. But I've seen equally people get in trouble because they have good feelings, like, oh, they said they're going to offer me that job, and they get all excited about it because somebody, and then it doesn't happen, and zoop, as quickly as they went up, they come back down, right? And so there are people who overinflate positive feelings in the same way that people overinflate the meaning of negative experiences.
Again, I help myself with this, Rosenna, because I look at my past, and I was the calm, cool, and collected, guy. Nothing fazed me. It wasn't true, but it was out of the unhealthy aspects that you talked about, numbing or even just repression or control. Now that I feel so much more whole in and of me, that on one hand you would say, well, gosh, things should faze me less. They don't control me, but I feel things deeper than ever. I'm actually able to get a tear out, which I know it's laughable. I'm 56 years
No, I
old,
get it.
and it's been since I was a kid that a tear
Wow.
escape. I thought, I was afraid that I forgot how to, like there's some comedy thing that my kids saw, and it's like an animated character, and this old man, he says, oh, I lost my tear ducts in the war. And they
Oh, wow.
joked about me with that. And now the other day I got a tear out, and
That's great.
it is, but I'm looking at it a little bit dumbfounded, like, wow, this just doesn't, the 1+1 of the social norms and the psychological norms that I've thought of don't add up. And I'm seeing this happen. I don't even know how to define it, though you're helping me. Thank you.
Absolutely.
You're next, the exit here, stagnant relationships. And you mentioned something earlier, and I found myself thinking about this section because, again, you pulled out terminology that I've been grappling with, and it was needs versus wants. You headlined the section with needs versus wants. And I realized that I'm seeing my relationships deepen as I am less needy. But again, it's not that I'm over here not, I don't need anybody, just an island unto myself. But now I get to come with, you said wants, I've been saying with actual healthy desire. I don't need to be with you, but I desire, and I want to be with people who don't need me. Red flag there, but they absolutely desire. So needs versus wants. So tell us about that in regard to this exit of stagnant relationships.
Right. And so it's the idea that people often have relationships unknowingly with ourselves, with themselves, right? It's like we have this bucket of, I can do this, and then this bucket of, I need this. Like, I need a person who does X, Y, and Z. And sometimes I'll comment, oh, I know a puppy for sale, right? Like someone who's going to give you attention when you want, someone who's going to love you unconditionally, someone who's going to, it's like, oh, that sounds like a puppy, not a person,
Fair.
and stuff. So well, the problem is that with these needs that we feel we have, that they're really wants and desires that can be healthy. But again, wants and desires we can invite in and we can let go. We're not attached to them,
Yeah.
and we're not attached to them, and we don't attribute them to someone's character. So we don't judge you based on how you fit my list of needs. But oftentimes that's what people are doing in relationship, not just with spouses, but often with children, often with their bosses. Their boss didn't give them a promotion. It must mean X, Y, and Z because they've been working for 4 years, or And so we have this list of these are the things that I need. One, we don't even clearly articulate what those needs are to the other person. And most of the time they're in our head and we're just keeping a record and the person doesn't know. Right. And so if we are self-centered and we have ways to get our basic emotional needs met, then and we take responsibility for that, then we can release that in other places. And then we see what people really have to offer us. And that's the beauty of it. When I see what my friends I have friends I talk to once a year. I love that conversation. And I have friends that I get to spend more time with, but there's space for all of them. There's not one person in my life that I need to be any particular thing, right? Except I need my husband to pay my bills. I need him to do that. No, but even if he doesn't, but I'm joking about that. But when we put so much burden on relationships instead of seeing where love takes us, again, it's fear versus love.
Yeah.
See where love takes you in a relationship instead of fear. That this person's not going to do what you want them to do. Fear, this person's not going to love you. Fear, this person's not going to be faithful. Fear, see where love takes you.
That's one of the biggest places of collateral damage for me. Is I was looking at the relationship. I needed that relationship to fulfill, to hold up this identity that I was so desperately trying to save. And that was not good fertilizer for a relationship. And in that, again, it just flows perfectly. The exit 5 is complacency. And that's one that's high in my mind. We recently had Michael Easter on the show, the author of The Comfort Crisis, and just the dangers of our propensity towards comfort. And you said that with complacency, that we just get in this complacent place. I even like you have a section or you pulled out that routines. We just get into a comfortable routine. And you said routine replaces growth. And I was talking about this recently with someone, Rosenna, of taking, we can have a routine. Generally we do. It's efficient. We have our routines for life. But can we make those routines? We can have routines that we hate, but it's just a routine and it quote works. Can we make that routine a ritual? And I elevate that term, a ritual, something that's sacred's a big word, but it's joy. We're present. We're
right.
In that, but to a bigger standpoint of you saying an exit of going, what am I holding on to? It may be comfortable. Again, devil I know, but at the risk of what could be. Yeah.
Yeah. Fear versus love, right? Yeah. Am I in this for fear, or am I in this because I really love this and it elevates who I am? And so it's not complacency, but it's routine. It's what I honor. That's different than I'm here because what's coming, what's higher than this looks really a lot more scary.
Your exit 6 is actually indoctrination, which we've covered. So I'm actually very proud of myself here that we're going to get through all 7, because this last one, again, it's you take. Yeah, I don't want to say that because you don't come at it with I was going to say you take aim, but you don't. I feel like you're so gracious at how you came to all of this, but you talk about purpose and passion, which is always upheld. I've heard a few people be contrarian about it, but for the most part, I'm a fan of finding things that you it doesn't have to be enjoy, but that you care about. And I see the people that work at things and devote themselves to things they care about, man, I'm going to uphold that. But you took the commonplace concept of purpose and passion. You said and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, you said we're taught to chase them like a treasure, but they can become just another performance. Boom. That was a mic drop for me. And then you went on to say, when we cling too tightly to the idea of a singular perfect purpose, we risk deserting the present moment in pursuit of this illusion, this thing. I almost thought about indoctrination again. There's this thing that we've put up as call it an idol or a whatever, and not realize it. I think it came, the concept jumped out to me because I just done it. And I don't know even maybe the extent that what I have, that I've put that purpose and passion and made it such a trophy that it became a performance. And so again, when you said that in the book, you said what's been bad. It's been pinking around in my head, but you said it in a way that I could conceptualize, I could resonate and hold. And, it feels very counter to what any of us have heard, that purpose and passion can just become a performance. And then again, we're doing it. Well, I guess we're back to what you keep coming to. We're back to fear instead of love. Yeah.
Absolutely. And exiting out of the pursuit and trusting the process that I don't like. What's the difference between me chasing it and me being it? Again, it allows me to release, expand, set aside, because I'm not attached to it as an identity. It becomes something that I honor, not something that I perform.
Yeah.
And it feels very different.
I have one more piece that I love how how you conceived of it. You talk about emotional malnourishment. And concepts that I wrote notes about underneath when you said emotional malnourishment. I look at us. This was somebody said this. I don't know, in the functional medicine world, that we're overfed as a culture, overfed, undernourished. I've been playing a lot with the concept, as my personal and work focus is on connection, that we're over communicating, we're over contacting and under connecting. We're not connecting anymore with people. We are, as you and I talked earlier, we're doing, and we're not being. So when you said emotional malnourishment, I went right down that rabbit hole, and I thought, oh my gosh, what came to mind was we're so emotionally, actually, I don't know if this is fair. You tell me if it tracks. We're, to some degree, it feels like we're emotionally stimulated, but as you said, we're malnourished. Does that track?
Right. Yeah, it does. Maybe I'm trying to think of it. Would it be the same as like exercising to lose weight, or exercising to get fit and only exercising, but you're not healthy? You might be you're not healthy. You're just exercising. You're burning through muscle, and you're not doing it the right way, but you're moving, but you're not getting healthier. You might be getting thinner. You're not getting fitter. You're not getting fitter by running and only running. You lack nutrition. You're not connecting with your body.
Yeah.
Right. You're actually running, but because you're absent from your body. And that's how I see all this pseudo connection, counting likes and counting this and pursuing that. But but at what point are you connecting? How good are you at connecting?
Yeah. And so with this, this emotional malnourishment, I mean, it does, I feel like you just, again, the terms that you've used, the contrast that you've created, and even the concept of exiting, things we need to exit, that, I want to, we got more to talk about. I just resonate with how you came at this, and I feel, I guess just such wisdom and insight from you.
Thank you,
Rosenna, and am grateful that you've done the work to bring the book forward. I'm mostly grateful in my self-centeredness to benefit me, because I'll benefit those around me and myself and them, but then also to share it with the audience. And I want your input on some things that I'm working on that we've been grappling with, that I feel like you've got some clarity and discernment. So I'm honored to promote the book and this message and let you guide more people as you have guided me. Thank you so much for doing what
Thank
you've done, and
you.
thanks for being here today.
My pleasure, Kevin. I really appreciate it. It's been a really good, healthy conversation for me. I love talking with people who are really pursuing it and not just performing a conversation, but really exploring the ideas around it. So it's been great.
Thank you. I'll accept that. Thanks, Rosenna.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us in the discussion. That again is Dr. Rosenna Bakari. The book that I was referencing is called 7 Exits: Leave Behind What No Longer Serves You. Till next time, here's to you and me making better meaning in our lives and experiencing the miracle of living.
Yeah.